Hello everyone, welcome back, and I know it's been a while since I previously uploaded, mostly because I didn't know if I wanted to continue posting on this channel or the alternative second channel that I started. But this time I want to discuss what makes a good gacha game. I asked in the community tab what was your first gacha game and why did you play it. Some individuals played Blue Archive, which is understandable, that's kind of the game my channel is based around. My first experience was with Genshin Impact. And there are a variety of reasons we all are lured into gacha games. Whether you've spent in them or remain perfectly free to play is different, and ultimately, in my opinion, it doesn't necessarily matter because either way, if you enjoy the game, you enjoy the game. I don't think paying or not paying should realistically affect how you're viewed. But gacha games use a variety of different methods, and I played Genshin Impact, I tried Honkai, I tried Punishing Grey Raven, Arknights, Blue Archive, obviously. There's also been Azure Lane. There's Alchemy Stars. There's a variety of different gacha games. I'm even playing Counterside and Artery Gear Fusion as of right now. So I do have at least some decent amount of gacha games under my belt, and ultimately I have a variety of different experiences. There are some games in which I look at them and I'm like, yeah, I'm willing to put money in. And there are other games where I just don't care. An example is I look at Genshin and I'm like, yeah, I'm perfectly fine with spending money on this game and putting money into it to get a character that I like Yoimiya, for instance. Then there's something like Arknights, and I've mentioned this previously, and in Arknights, my opinion is the art style is beautiful, the music is wonderful. Arknights has some of the best music, in my opinion, out of the gacha games themselves. There are some bangers in Genshin Impact's OST, and there are some bangers in Blue Archive, but ultimately Arknights has the most consistently good soundtrack. However, even with all that being said, when I look at a character like Mizuki, like Lionheart, like Suzerain, and all these other units that I maybe like the design of, or maybe like the abilities and skills of, what usually pulls me in is I want to learn more about that character, or maybe I want to have more interactions with them in some way. This could be in a story, this could be in a cutscene, this could be in something animated. It doesn't really matter. I've mentioned that Blue Archive does characterization really well, and that's why I prefer the game, but if I'm talking about this in simplistic terms, Blue Archive gives me a character, I can like that character for the design or the personality, and then I experience a relationship quest line with that character and use them in combat. Now, objectively speaking, you don't have to really play the game to get the character. You can get a character in Blue Archive, you can essentially level up your relationship rank with them through the cafe and through gifts, and that's about it. You don't really have to play. And so you don't necessarily need to care how they perform in gameplay, especially if you just like the design or you just like their personality, and that's completely valid. I personally, despite making many videos on Blue Archive, don't play the game actively, at least not as much as I do in terms or comparison to Genshin, Artery Gear, or Counterside, just because those games are newer or have more things that keep me interested. None of this is to say that either one of the games I've mentioned are bad. I quite like all of them, and they all have their unique charms. But Arknights, in my opinion, doesn't necessarily do a lot after the character. There are characters you like, there are characters you may like the look of, the design of, or the gameplay of, but ultimately, unless you're willing to read a wall of text, you really don't get much more in-depth or much more involvement with that unit. Sure, there's an occasional event, sure, there's an outfit, but a lot of the information, story-related at least, is tied to a wall of text that you can find in that character's file. Now, don't get me wrong, it fits to the game lore-wise. It's not necessarily a bad approach, but I do wish it gave me more interactions with that unit, because just because I like the art style, and just because I like the design overall, doesn't necessarily mean I don't want more of it. It's not even like when they sit on the main menu or your lobby screen, they give you anything unique. They don't necessarily say anything that conveys a lot more about the personality. And as a direct result of that, because they're not moving, because they don't have any animations outside of the actual combat system itself, it feels a bit dry. In Arknights, it feels the most heavily like I am just rolling for a set of pixels. Don't get me wrong, I'm rolling for those pixels, whether that be in Genshin, whether that be in Blue Archive, or whatever the case may be. But Blue Archive and Genshin and other gacha games seem to do more to make those pixels seem like they're more valuable, because outside of their uses in gameplay, they have different, art themes, they have different emotional expressions, they have different movement styles, at least if you're comparing it to like Honkai, Genshin, PGR. And Blue Archive gives you a whole quest dedicated to that character, so it feels like there's more effort put into them. So I don't dislike Arknights. I like the gameplay, I like the music, I like the art style, but I don't like the story, and I don't like the characterization and how that's handled. But ultimately, you can be drawn into gacha games for any number of reasons. Some games have really good big emphasis on graphics. Some have really big emphasis on the combat itself. Whether that be how strategically involved you need to be, I think Arknights does this exceptionally well. whether that be the skills and abilities of characters, i.e. something like Blue Archive, or whether that be the general feel of it. This can be referred to like Shanghai Impact or PGR, which has countering systems, or it could be Genshin Impact, in which case it's a third-person game. Regardless of whatever scenario you prefer, ultimately, these are all different styles of combat, these are all different styles of games, and at the exact same time, you can have your own personal preference and be drawn into them for any number of reasons, and none of them are bad. If you have a gacha game that you really enjoy the feel of or the play style of or whatever the case may be, please list it down in the comment section below, because ultimately I do want to explore other games and find out what people liked about a game, what people do currently like about a game, and what you guys are interested in. But I think it's a weird tightrope to walk, because at the end of the day, you can have a gacha game that has a great setup, a great game feel of gameplay, great art style, great everything, but have terrible rates and you won't go back to it. Alternatively, you can have one that has great rates but absolutely awful, that just bores you out of your mind. So it has to be a balance, and ultimately the community itself can be very helpful with that. I think Blue Archive has a great community. I think if I'm comparing that to other gacha games, Blue Archive community, despite what people seem to think about it, is a lot better, and even Arknights community is a lot better than Genshin Impact's community. However, this could also be because Genshin Impact is so large that the minority who cause the problem are very, very loud, at least in comparison to the other groups. With that being said, whether you love the story of a gacha game, whether you love the characters of one, or whether you're intrigued by gameplay, I think they're all valid reasons, and each gacha game really does attempt to try and make itself special. A lot of games singular or situate themselves around one particular design aspect. Another one will change its gameplay around one specific aspect to focus on and hone in on one really, really good and unique feeling thing. It could be countering in gameplay mechanics. It could be the girls with guns theme that Blue Archive currently has going on. Another one could solely devote itself to story or graphical fidelity, and all of these are very important. In my opinion, if I'm not attracted to a game off the cuff just because of the characters, the graphics will really interest me. Art of Gear Fusion and Counterside didn't necessarily attract me because they had amazing character designs. I was attracted because I liked the graphical style of them, and I saw another content creator 6 cover them. Now, I enjoy all these games, don't get me wrong, but there are different reasons. Genshin attracted me because of the fact that, it was the most advertised one and it was free and I had nothing else to play. Arknights attracted me because I had heard quite a lot about it and it was recommended, so I played it. Blue Archive, the characters are what got me in. I downloaded it, played it, and here I am now. I think to make a really good gacha game, you either have to solely devote your time and the player experience around one of those aspects, or you have to be really well at doing all three. You can have great rates, but that doesn't matter if the players want to play. You can have stale gameplay, and ultimately people will enjoy it and be fine with it if they like the character, the design, or what they're getting. If value is not provided to the player in terms of the experience itself, then there is no point in playing. And I think a lot of games do different things like that. Combo meters, for example, are very important. You have games that really focus on giving you that dopamine hit. You've done well. Games will flood you with achievement after achievement after achievement, or notification after notification, essentially congratulating you or giving you rewards. And this happens a lot if you're a newer player, but it happens all the time. I'm not saying these are bad. I'm saying these are perfectly fine, but I want and am interested in the upcoming gacha games. Wuthering Waves, I think it's called. You have Tower of Fantasy that's coming out as well. You have Zenless Zone Zero. These are, Hoyoverse games as well. I'm interested in the Arknights game, the more 3D-esque one. I'm interested as we move on and as we progress, as the gacha game seems not only gets much more competitive, but much more well known, how games progress and interact with that. Because at the end of the day, more competition is good, and I vastly enjoy having and seeing better games being produced. Either way, my name's Shanghai. If you've enjoyed, leave a like on the video, consider subscribing, and I hope to see you next time. Goodbye!